Clara had always dreamed of leaving the noisy city behind. The constant traffic, crowded streets, and never-ending rush had left her exhausted and restless. She wanted a change, a place where she could breathe, think, and work with her hands. When she saw the small advertisement for a ranch in Montana, offering room, work, and a chance to live in the wide-open countryside, she jumped at the opportunity. It sounded like a fresh start, far away from the pressures of her past life. The drive to the ranch took hours longer than she expected. The roads became narrower, winding through endless stretches of golden fields and dense clusters of pine trees. The sky above was a clear, bright blue, with only a few clouds drifting lazily across the horizon. It was beautiful, almost unreal in its peace. But Clara couldn't shake a sense of unease that seemed to grow with every mile. The silence of the countryside was different from city silence. It was heavier, as if the land itself was holding its breath. When Clara finally saw the ranch, she was taken aback. The property was enormous, stretching for acres with several barns, a few smaller sheds, and a large, weathered farmhouse at the center. Smoke curled lazily from the chimney, and the distant sound of animals echoed across the fields. At first glance, it seemed perfect, a place where she could start over and leave her worries behind. She parked her car near the farmhouse, took a deep breath, and stepped out. The air smelled different here, clean, earthy, and crisp, with the faint scent of hay and soil. Clara adjusted the strap of her bag over her shoulder and started walking toward the front porch, rehearsing what she would say. She wasn't entirely sure what to expect. She had never worked on a ranch before, and she wasn't sure how much they would expect from her. The door opened before she could knock. A tall man, broad-shouldered and weathered by years in the sun, looked down at her. He was in his late 40s, with a strong jaw and a lined face, but his eyes were what unsettled Clara the most. They were sharp and calculating, observing every detail about her as if he were trying to figure her out in an instant. "Hello," Clara said, her voice steady despite the flutter in her chest. "I'm Clara. I'm here about the ranch work." The man hesitated for a moment, as if unsure whether to welcome her or keep his distance. Then he nodded slowly. "I'm Jack. Welcome to my ranch." His voice was calm, but it carried a strange weight, a quiet authority that made Clara straighten her back and suddenly feel very small. He stepped aside to let her in. The inside of the house was surprisingly neat but plain. The furniture was sturdy and practical, designed for work, not comfort. Sunlight filtered through the windows, casting warm patterns across the wooden floors. Clara took in the smell of wood polish mixed with the faint scent of cooking from the kitchen. It was homey in a quiet, functional way, but there was an odd tension in the air, a sense that everything had a purpose beyond what met the eye. Jack led her to the kitchen table, gesturing for her to sit. "Let's talk about what you'll be doing," he said, pouring himself a cup of coffee. Clara took a seat, her fingers nervously fidgeting with the strap of her bag. "You'll start with general chores, feeding the animals, cleaning the barns, helping with repairs," he said. His tone was neutral, but there was a pause after each task, as if he were measuring her reaction. "We work hard here, but it's rewarding if you stick with it." Clara nodded. "I can do that. I'm ready to work." She tried to smile, hoping to show enthusiasm and eagerness. Jack's eyes flicked to hers, assessing. "Good. You'll start tomorrow morning. I'll show you the ropes, but I expect you to pay attention and follow instructions. Mistakes here can be costly." Clara swallowed, unsure if he meant financially or something else. She nodded again, her stomach tightening, but forcing herself to remain calm. "Understood." After their conversation, Jack showed her around the ranch. She followed him through fields dotted with grazing cattle and past barns filled with horses, chickens, and other animals. Each step seemed to increase her awareness of the ranch's size and isolation. The property stretched far into the distance, and there were no neighbors for miles. The only sounds were the wind through the trees, the occasional lowing of a cow, and the soft crunch of her boots on the gravel paths. Jack pointed out each building, explaining its purpose, and Clara listened intently, asking questions when she could. Everything seemed normal, but Clara noticed subtle details that made her uneasy. Some of the barns were locked tightly, with heavy chains securing them. A few paths led into dense woods that seemed almost unnatural in their silence. The ranch. Hands moved quickly. Avoiding eye contact, and the way they glanced at Jack made her wonder what kind of control he had over them. As the tour ended, Clara was shown to her small room in the farmhouse. It was simple: a bed, a dresser, and a small desk by the window. Sunlight streamed in, illuminating the dust motes floating lazily in the air. She unpacked her bag and looked around, trying to shake off the lingering sense of unease. It was quiet, too quiet, but she told herself it was just the nature of the countryside. Here, sounds traveled far, and the world moved slower. That evening, Clara cooked a simple meal in the kitchen. Jack ate in silence, occasionally glancing at her with an unreadable expression. Conversation was minimal, but she tried to make small talk, asking about the ranch and his life here. His answers were brief, practical, and sometimes vague, leaving her with more questions than answers. Still, she forced herself to relax, reminding herself that first impressions could be misleading. After dinner, she stepped outside onto the porch. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange, pink, and purple. The ranch looked different in this light, soft and inviting in some areas, shadowed and mysterious in others. Clara breathed in the evening air, letting herself imagine life here as she had hoped, simple, peaceful, and full of purpose. But as darkness fell and the stars began to appear, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Not by anyone in particular, but by the land itself, or perhaps by something hidden within it. The isolation that had seemed so appealing during the day now felt heavier, almost pressing in around her. She locked the door behind her and sat on the edge of her bed, trying to calm her racing thoughts. She reminded herself that she had chosen this path, that she was strong enough to handle hard work and solitude. Yet a small, persistent voice in the back of her mind whispered that the ranch held secrets and that she was only beginning to see the surface. Clara lay down that night staring at the ceiling, listening to the distant sounds of the animals and the wind through the trees. Somewhere in the darkness, the ranch held its breath, and she couldn't tell if it was welcoming her or warning her. By the time sleep came, Clara was caught between excitement and unease. She had taken her first step toward a new life, but something about the ranch, its quiet, its people, and its unspoken rules, made her wonder if she truly understood what she had walked into. The next morning, Clara woke up early. The sky was a pale blue and a soft mist covered the fields. She could hear the faint sounds of animals stirring, the low murmur of cows, the rustle of chickens in the barn, and the distant bark of a dog. The ranch seemed peaceful at first glance, but Clara could still feel that odd tension lingering in the air. It was as if the land itself had a rhythm she didn't yet understand, one that warned her to stay alert. She dressed quickly and went down to the kitchen. Jack was already there, sipping coffee, his posture calm but tense. He didn't greet her with much enthusiasm, but Clara reminded herself that this was a man of few words. Breakfast was simple: toast, eggs, and a warm cup of tea. Clara tried to make small talk, asking questions about the animals and the tasks for the day. Jack answered in his usual short, precise manner, but she noticed something different. His eyes seemed sharper, flicking around the room and then resting on her just long enough to make her heart race. After breakfast, Jack handed her a list of chores. Clara tried to focus, but the more she moved around the ranch, the more she noticed things that didn't make sense. One barn, the one furthest from the house, had its doors tightly locked. She asked Jack about it while passing by. "That barn is off limits," he said firmly. "You don't need to worry about it." Clara nodded, but couldn't shake her curiosity. She noticed the lock was heavy and new, and the wood around it looked worn as if it had been replaced recently. Something about the secrecy bothered her, though she tried to push it aside. She had to earn Jack's trust first, and asking too many questions might make him suspicious. As the day went on, Clara started working with the other ranch hands. They were quiet, efficient, and seemed to avoid unnecessary conversation. Whenever she tried to talk to them, they offered only brief answers before moving on. Clara noticed how quickly their eyes darted to Jack whenever he was nearby, and she began to wonder if there was a reason for their fear or caution. The more she observed, the more she realized that the ranch operated under unspoken rules. rules she didn't fully understand yet. During her lunch break, Clara decided to explore a little farther from the house. She walked along a dirt path leading toward a grove of trees near the edge of the property. The sunlight filtered through the branches, creating dappled shadows on the ground. Birds chirped softly and the breeze carried the faint smell of wildflowers. It was peaceful, but there was an underlying sense of stillness that made her uneasy. She felt like she was stepping into a part of the ranch that no one wanted her to see. As she wandered, she stumbled upon a small, overgrown path leading behind one of the barns. Curiosity tugged at her and she followed it. The ground was uneven and the tall grass brushed against her legs. She noticed footprints that didn't match the boots of the ranch hands she had seen earlier. They were fresh, leading toward a small, hidden shed partially covered by vines. Clara's heart began to beat faster. What was in that shed? Why had no one mentioned it? She crouched behind a tree and peeked inside the shed. There were stacks of crates and barrels, some labeled with dates and numbers she didn't understand. What caught her attention, though, was a pile of old equipment and tools, some broken, some well-maintained. She couldn't see anyone inside, but the smell of hay mixed with something else, something she couldn't place, made her instinctively step back. Suddenly, a voice called from behind her, "You shouldn't be back here." Clara spun around to see one of the ranch hands, a young man named Sam, standing a few feet away. His expression was serious, almost fearful. She tried to smile, hoping to ease the tension. "I was just exploring," she said. "I didn't mean to intrude." Sam nodded slowly, glancing around as if afraid someone might be watching. "It's better if you don't go near that shed. Jack doesn't like people wandering off." Clara felt a chill. She wanted to ask why, but she sensed that pressing him might get her into trouble. Instead, she nodded politely. "I understand. I'll stay on the paths from now on." Sam gave a small fleeting smile, then walked away quickly. Clara watched him go, feeling a mix of curiosity and unease. Why did the shed matter so much? What was Jack hiding? She tried to focus on her other chores, but the questions kept creeping into her mind. By mid-afternoon, Clara returned to the main barn to feed the animals. As she worked, she overheard Jack speaking on the phone, his voice low and tense. She couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but certain words stood out. Problem, handle it, and don't let anyone see. Clara's stomach tightened. She had a sense that something serious was happening, something she wasn't supposed to know about. The hours passed slowly, and Clara's mind kept returning to the locked barn and the hidden shed. Each new task she performed seemed overshadowed by her curiosity and unease. By the time the sun began to set, she was exhausted, both physically and mentally. Yet sleep didn't come easily. Her thoughts kept spinning, imagining what might be hidden behind those locked doors. That night, as she lay in bed, Clara decided to take a careful approach. She wouldn't confront Jack or the ranch hands directly, not yet. She would observe, pay attention to small details, and try to understand the patterns of the ranch. Every sound, every glance, every hushed conversation could be a clue. She had to be cautious, but she also knew she couldn't ignore her instincts. Over the next few days, Clara fell into a routine. She woke early, worked tirelessly, and tried to blend in as much as possible. She fed the animals, cleaned the barns, and helped with repairs. She asked questions sparingly and only when necessary. Yet despite her efforts to remain inconspicuous, she continued to notice strange patterns. Certain areas were always off limits, certain tools were locked away, and certain animals seemed unusually confined. One afternoon, Clara witnessed a peculiar incident. She was passing by the far barn when she saw Jack standing near the entrance, speaking quietly to one of the ranch hands. The hand gestures, the tension in their posture, and the way the hand quickly moved away when she approached made her heart race. Something was definitely being kept from her. Something more than just farm business. Determined to learn more, Clara began to make mental notes of everything she observed. The times Jack went to certain areas, which barns were off limits, how the ranch hands reacted when certain topics came up. She didn't know what she would do with this information yet, but it made her feel a little more in control, less like she was walking blindly into the unknown. One evening, after a long day of work, Clara decided to take a short walk before bed. The sky was turning shades of orange and pink, and the ranch looked peaceful in the fading light. As she walked past the hidden shed, she paused and listened. There was a faint sound, something moving inside, or perhaps just the wind shifting through the building. Her curiosity gnawed at her, but she reminded herself to be careful. She couldn't risk being caught snooping. She returned to the house, her mind buzzing with questions. Why was the shed hidden? What was in the locked barn? Why did Jack and the ranch hands act so secretively? Clara realized that life on the ranch was far more complicated than she had imagined. It wasn't just hard work. It was a puzzle she had to solve, one piece at a time. That night, as she lay in bed, Clara made a promise to herself. She would not let fear or uncertainty stop her. She would watch, learn, and understand the mysteries of the ranch. And when the right moment came, she would uncover the secrets that everyone seemed so desperate to hide. Sleep finally came, but her dreams were restless. She dreamt of locked doors, shadowy barns, and the quiet, watchful eyes of the ranch hands. She woke several times, the early morning light filtering through the curtains, feeling both excitement and dread. Clara knew that the days ahead would test her patience, courage, and determination. But despite the tension and mystery, she also felt a spark of hope. Hope that she could navigate the secrets of the ranch and find a place where she truly belonged. The next morning, Clara woke to the sound of birds calling in the distance. The ranch was quiet except for the soft rustling of leaves and the low hum of the animals. She dressed quickly, determined to keep her mind focused. The curiosity that had been growing in her since her arrival felt stronger than ever. She knew there were things happening on the ranch that she wasn't meant to see, and yet she couldn't ignore the pull to understand them. She started her day with the usual chores. Feeding the animals and cleaning the barns felt repetitive, but Clara tried to use the work as a way to observe more carefully. Every glance she caught between Jack and the ranch hands, every locked door or hidden path, added to the list of questions forming in her mind. She had learned that patience was essential. Rushing or confronting anyone too quickly could be dangerous, not physically, but in terms of trust and access. The ranch operated like a quiet, hidden system, and she needed to understand the rules before moving forward. By mid-morning, Clara was delivering hay to the horses when she noticed something unusual. One of the younger ranch hands, Sam, was lingering near a fence line, looking around nervously. When he saw her watching, he quickly straightened up and pretended to adjust a gate. Clara hesitated, then approached him carefully. "Sam," she said softly, "is everything okay?" Sam glanced over his shoulder, lowering his voice. "It's nothing," he said quickly, but his eyes betrayed him. There was tension there, worry, maybe even fear. Clara felt a mix of concern and determination. She didn't push further, but she made a mental note of his behavior. Something about him suggested he knew more than he was letting on. As she worked, Clara began to notice patterns in the ranch's daily life. Jack had specific routines, often disappearing to the same locked barns or sheds at the same times each day. The ranch hands moved efficiently, but certain areas were always avoided unless Jack was present. Even the animals seemed to react differently around some parts of the property, uneasy as if they sensed the same tension that Clara felt. That afternoon, while carrying supplies to the far barn, Clara stumbled upon another unusual sight. A small storage shed she hadn't noticed before stood near the edge of the property, half hidden by tall grass and trees. Its door was slightly ajar, revealing crates and barrels stacked inside. Curiosity and caution warred inside her. She knew she shouldn't peek inside, but the glimpse of movement from within made her pause. Something or someone was in there, though she couldn't see clearly. Clara decided to back away quietly and wait for a better opportunity. She knew she had to be clever. Any sudden movement or intrusion might alert Jack or the other ranch hands, and she wasn't ready to confront anyone directly yet. Instead, she focused on observing from a distance, noting the times people approached the shed and how they acted around it. Each day revealed small clues, like a puzzle slowly coming together. By evening, Clara was exhausted. Her body ached from the physical labor, but her mind was alive with questions. As she washed up in the small bathroom of the farmhouse, she caught her reflection in the mirror. The face staring back at her looked determined, but there was a shadow of worry in her eyes. She realized she was no longer just an observer on the ranch. She was a participant in its hidden rhythm, learning how to move quietly, notice details, and stay alert. Dinner that night was quiet. Jack ate his meal methodically, rarely speaking, while the ranch hands sat together at the far end of the table. Clara tried to start a conversation asking about the chores for the next day, but Jack's responses were short and calculated. It was clear he wasn't someone who wasted words, and she realized that any information she wanted would have to be earned through observation and patience, not questioning. After dinner, Clara decided to take a walk outside, a habit she was developing to clear her mind and watch the ranch from a different perspective. The sun was dipping below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The ranch looked peaceful, but shadows stretched long and mysterious across the fields. Clara's thoughts drifted back to the locked barns and hidden sheds. The questions about what Jack was hiding felt heavier now, pressing at her mind with a sense of urgency. As she approached the edge of the property near the forested area, she noticed movement. Sam was there again, crouched low near one of the hidden paths. This time he didn't notice her at first, giving Clara a chance to observe him closely. He seemed to be checking something, looking carefully around before retreating into the shadows. Clara realized that Sam was not just nervous, he was cautious, almost protective of something. Gathering her courage, she stepped closer. "Sam," she whispered. He froze, then looked around before spotting her. Relief mixed with worry crossed his face. "You shouldn't be here," he said quietly. "I know," Clara replied, "but I have to understand what's going on. Something feels off about this place." Sam hesitated, then nodded slightly. "You're right," he said softly. "There are things you shouldn't see yet. But maybe you'll find out in time." Clara felt a mixture of relief and frustration, finally a hint of acknowledgement that she wasn't imagining the tension, but Sam wasn't ready to give her answers. She decided to respect his caution and stepped back, watching him disappear into the shadows. Over the next few days, Clara became increasingly attentive to small details. She noticed that Jack kept certain equipment meticulously organized while ignoring other areas entirely. Some gates were chained during certain hours, and she observed how the ranch hands moved with almost mechanical precision around these areas. Everything seemed deliberate, and Clara's mind raced with possibilities. One morning, she discovered a note tucked behind a barn door, partially hidden under a pile of hay. It was folded neatly, as if someone had left it in secret. She unfolded it carefully, reading the words. "Watch closely. Timing matters. Not everyone can be trusted." Her heart skipped a beat. It was a warning, but from whom? And why had it been left where she would find it? Clara realized that the ranch held secrets that were carefully protected, not just by Jack but by others who had been here before her. Her curiosity was now matched by a sense of purpose. She couldn't ignore the clues any longer. She had to understand the rhythm of the ranch, the behavior of the people, and the hidden areas that everyone seemed to avoid. Each day became a careful game of observation and deduction. Clara learned when to ask questions, when to remain silent, and how to notice patterns without drawing attention to herself. Even the animals seemed to hint at the hidden rhythms. Horses would shy away from certain barns, cows would shift nervously near specific fences, and even the dog acted unusually alert near certain areas. Clara began to understand that the ranch wasn't just a place for work. It was a carefully controlled environment, with boundaries, rules, and secrets that went far beyond the chores she had expected. By the end of the week, Clara felt both more confident and more cautious. She had gathered pieces of information, observed routines, and even noticed subtle hints that Jack himself was careful about what he allowed others to see. The sense of isolation she had felt at first was now accompanied by the knowledge that she was part of something larger, something she didn't fully understand yet. One evening, as she sat on the porch watching the sun dip below the horizon, she realized how much her perspective had changed. The ranch that had seemed simple and straightforward on her first day was now layered with mystery, caution, and careful observation. She understood that she was no longer just a visitor. She was part of the ranch's hidden world, and every step she took would have to be measured. Careful and deliberate, Clara closed her eyes, letting the quiet of the evening surround her. She knew that the next phase of her experience on the ranch would be the most challenging yet. Observing patterns, gathering clues, and understanding the hidden dynamics of the ranch had prepared her. But now she needed to be ready for unexpected discoveries. Something was waiting. She was certain of it, just beyond her reach, hidden in the shadows of barns, sheds, and the land itself. Sleep came slowly, filled with dreams of hidden paths, locked doors, and cautious glances. Clara awoke again before dawn, her determination stronger than ever. She would uncover the truths that everyone seemed desperate to hide, and when she did, she would understand not just the ranch but the people who lived there and the secrets they protected so carefully. The following morning, Clara woke before sunrise as she had done for several days now. The soft light of dawn barely touched the horizon, casting a faint glow over the ranch. Mist curled above the fields and the animals stirred quietly, as if they too were waking cautiously, aware of the day ahead. Clara pulled on her boots, adjusted her sleeves, and prepared herself. Today, she decided, she would push her curiosity a little further, but carefully. Every observation so far had taught her the importance of patience and caution. She began with the usual chores, feeding the animals and checking the barns. Jack and the other ranch hands moved about the ranch with their usual precision, but Clara noticed small patterns she had not observed before. Jack seemed to check the locks and gates at very specific times, often pausing to glance toward the far barns or the hidden shed she had discovered. Clara's curiosity intensified. Whatever was behind those locked doors mattered to him, and the care he took suggested that it was important enough to protect at all costs. After finishing the morning tasks, Clara decided to take a longer walk toward the far end of the property. The sun was rising higher now, and the mist began to lift, revealing more of the sprawling fields. She kept her movement slow and deliberate, making sure she didn't attract attention. Her eyes scanned every corner, fences, barns, gates, and even the spaces between the trees. The more she looked, the more she realized that the ranch was a carefully managed world, with its own rules, boundaries, and invisible lines. When she reached the edge of the forest near the hidden shed, Clara paused. From her vantage point, she could see that someone had moved crates earlier that morning, leaving fresh marks in the dirt. Her heart quickened. She wasn't sure who had done it or why, but the activity suggested that the shed held more than just supplies. Clara crouched behind a tree, observing silently. After a few moments, Sam appeared from behind the barn, carrying a small stack of tools. He paused as if sensing someone was watching, and then glanced toward Clara's hiding spot. Their eyes met briefly, and he gave a slight nod before continuing his work. Clara realized he might be an ally, someone who understood the secrets of the ranch better than anyone else. Yet he was careful not to involve her directly, perhaps fearing trouble if Jack discovered her curiosity. Clara returned to the farmhouse for lunch, her mind racing with possibilities. She tried to eat, but her appetite was lost in thoughts of locked doors, hidden sheds, and the behavior of the ranch hands. Something important was happening on this ranch, something hidden, and she was determined to understand it. She began to make mental notes: the times Jack visited certain barns, the way Sam moved, the reactions of the other ranch hands. Each observation added to the picture, slowly revealing the hidden rhythm of the ranch. After lunch, Clara was assigned to repair a broken fence near the far barn. As she worked, she noticed small details that she had not before. There were fresh marks on the ground leading to the back of the barn, and the lock on the nearby shed appeared to have been recently adjusted. Clara's curiosity grew stronger. She finished her work quickly, then lingered, watching. The more she observed, the more she realized that the ranch had secrets carefully protected by routine, fear, and perhaps loyalty. That evening, Clara decided to take another walk, this time along a narrow path leading behind one of the barns she had been warned about. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the fields. Clara's heart beat faster as she approached the path. She moved slowly, listening for any sound, any movement that might alert someone to her presence. From her hiding spot, she could see the shed door slightly open. Inside, she glimpsed stacks of supplies and equipment, some neatly arranged, some scattered. Her eyes widened as she noticed a small bundle tucked away in the corner. It looked out of place, like it had been hidden deliberately. Clara's instincts told her she was on the right track. Whatever was in that shed, it was important. Suddenly, a noise startled her. A branch snapped nearby and Clara froze. Jack's voice called from the distance, "Sam, check the gate." The ranch hand hurried to respond, unaware of Clara's presence. She held her breath, letting the tension wash over her. Her mind raced as she considered her next move. She couldn't confront Jack or the ranch hands directly. Not yet. She had to be careful, patient, and strategic. Over the next few days, Clara's observations became even more detailed. She tracked Jack's movements, noting which barns he visited and how often. She observed Sam and the other ranch hands, learning their habits and patterns. She even began to notice small, almost imperceptible signals between them. Glances, gestures, subtle nods that hinted at unspoken communication. Clara realized that the ranch was like a hidden system, with rules and hierarchies she didn't yet fully understand. One afternoon, while checking the horses near the far barn, Clara noticed something strange. The ground around a locked gate had fresh footprints, though no one was nearby. She followed the trail cautiously, her curiosity pushing her forward. It led to a small, overgrown path that seemed to disappear into the trees. Clara paused, her heart pounding. The path was hidden from the main fields, suggesting that whoever used it wanted to remain unseen. She felt a thrill of discovery mixed with apprehension. That night, Clara sat on the porch thinking about everything she had observed. The ranch, which had seemed peaceful at first, now felt like a puzzle. Every detail, the locked barns, the hidden shed, the careful movements of Jack and the ranch hands pointed to something significant. Clara realized that she had reached a turning point. Observation and patience had brought her closer to understanding. But soon, she would need to make a decision. Continue watching quietly or take a cautious step toward discovering the truth. Sleep that night was uneasy. Clara dreamed of hidden paths, locked doors, and shadows moving in the barns. The ranch seemed alive in her dreams, as if it were aware of her curiosity and testing her resolve. She awoke before dawn, determined to act carefully but to act nonetheless. The following morning, Clara approached the shed at a time when she had observed it was usually unattended. The sun was just rising, casting a soft golden glow over the fields. She moved quietly, crouching low behind the trees. Her eyes scanned the area, noting any movement or sound. The shed stood before her, partially hidden by overgrown grass and branches. She could see the lock had been slightly loosened, perhaps carelessly, and an opportunity seemed to present itself. Clara inched closer, heart pounding with anticipation. She peered through a small gap in the shed door. Inside, she saw crates stacked neatly, as well as several bundles of material she couldn't identify. What caught her attention most was a small organized notebook, resting on top of one of the crates. It looked out of place, like a personal record hidden among the supplies. Clara's curiosity surged. She knew that notebook could hold answers, but reaching it required caution. She waited patiently, observing the area for signs of anyone approaching. The ranch seemed unusually still, almost holding its breath. Clara realized that this moment was a test of her patience, judgment, and careful planning. She moved slowly, inching closer to the shed, ready to uncover the secrets it held. For the first time, Clara felt the thrill of discovery balanced with the weight of responsibility. She understood that the ranch had been hiding something for a long time, and that uncovering it would require not only courage but careful strategy. She was no longer just an observer. She was now an active participant in uncovering the truth behind the hidden world of the ranch. As the sun climbed higher, casting its light across the fields, Clara prepared herself for the careful, deliberate steps that would lead to her first significant discovery. The hidden paths, locked barns, and cautious glances were all pieces of a puzzle she was determined to solve, and though she didn't yet know what she would find, she felt certain that the answers were within reach, waiting quietly behind the locked doors and hidden sheds of the ranch. The next morning, Clara woke with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. She had spent days observing, noting patterns, and learning the hidden rhythm of the ranch. Today felt different. Something in the air seemed sharper, more urgent. She could feel that a breakthrough was near, a moment where her patience and careful observation would finally pay off. Clara began her day quietly, completing the usual chores with careful attention. She fed the animals, cleaned the barns, and repaired fences, all while keeping her mind alert for any unusual activity. The ranch seemed ordinary at first, but Clara had learned that appearances were deceiving. Each movement, glance, and sound held meaning if one paid attention. She reminded herself to stay calm and thoughtful, knowing that the smallest mistake could alert Jack or the ranch hands to her curiosity. After finishing her chores in the early morning, Clara decided it was time to approach the hidden shed. Over the past days, she had observed when it was usually unattended, and now she felt confident that the timing was right. She moved cautiously, crouching behind trees and tall grass, her eyes scanning for any sign of movement. The shed stood quietly, partially hidden by the branches and shadows, waiting for her approach. Clara reached the shed and carefully peered through the small gap in the door. The sunlight filtered in, illuminating the interior and revealing crates, barrels, and bundles of supplies. Her eyes immediately went to the small notebook she had noticed earlier. It lay on top of a crate as if inviting her to examine it. Clara's heart raced. She had no idea what the notebook contained, but something about it suggested answers to the questions that had been forming in her mind for days. Taking a deep breath, Clara gently pushed the door open just enough to slip inside. The floorboards creaked slightly under her weight, and she froze, listening for any sound. The ranch remained quiet, the animals distant, the air still and heavy. With cautious steps, she moved closer to the crate and reached for the notebook. Her hands trembled slightly with anticipation. Opening the notebook, Clara discovered pages filled with detailed notes, observations, and careful records. It wasn't about the chores or the animals, it was about the ranch itself. Jack had meticulously documented every aspect of the property: schedules, paths, hidden areas, and even the behavior of the ranch hands. Each entry revealed how much care and attention he put into managing the ranch, protecting its secrets, and maintaining control over the land. Clara realized that the secrets were not sinister but about the preservation of the ranch and the safety of the people who worked there. As she read, Clara felt a mix of relief and curiosity. The locked barns, the hidden sheds, and the careful routines were not meant to harm anyone. They were part of a system Jack had developed over years to ensure that the ranch ran smoothly and safely. The notebook also contained instructions for dealing with emergencies, unexpected visitors, and potential hazards in the remote countryside. Jack's actions, which had seemed mysterious or even frightening, were measures of responsibility and protection. Clara spent hours examining the notebook, carefully noting the details that explained the patterns she had observed. She understood now why the ranch hands had been cautious, why certain areas were off limits, and why Jack had been so meticulous in his routines. The hidden rhythm of the ranch was not a secret meant to deceive. It was a plan to keep the ranch safe, organized, and productive. As she placed the notebook back on the crate, Clara felt a sense of understanding wash over her. The tension and unease that had followed her since the first day began to fade. She realized that the fear she had sensed was not of danger but of responsibility. The responsibility of maintaining such a large, isolated property and keeping everyone who lived and worked there safe. Clara stepped outside, letting the morning sun warm her face. The ranch looked different now, not mysterious or intimidating, but alive with purpose. The animals moved quietly in the fields. The barns stood solid and secure, and the paths she had observed for days now seemed like the careful layout of a well-managed world. Clara felt a sense of connection to the land and the people who had dedicated their lives to it. When Jack returned later that morning, Clara decided to approach him. She walked calmly toward him, notebook in hand, ready to show that she had gained insight into the ranch's hidden system. Jack paused as she approached, his eyes sharp but not unkind. "I found your notebook," Clara said gently. "I think I understand now." Jack studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. "You've been paying attention," he said, his voice calm. "It's good. Not many people notice the details that matter here." Clara smiled, relieved. "I see why some areas are off limits now. It's not what I feared, it's about keeping the ranch safe and organized." Jack's expression softened. "Exactly. Running this place isn't easy, and mistakes can have serious consequences. The rules, the routines, they're all here to protect the land, the animals, and everyone who works here." Clara felt a deep respect for Jack and the way he managed the ranch. The mystery that had haunted her for days now seemed like a puzzle solved, a hidden world revealed. She understood that her initial fear had come from not knowing, from imagining the worst instead of understanding the reasons behind the secrecy. Over the next few days, Clara continued her work with renewed confidence. She followed Jack's routines carefully, paying attention to the details that now made sense. She observed the ranch hands, noticing how their trust in her grew as they saw her understanding and respect for the system. The atmosphere on the ranch shifted subtly. There was still a rhythm to follow, but it was no longer intimidating or mysterious. It felt like being part of a carefully orchestrated, living world. Clara also began to explore new tasks, guided by Jack and Sam, learning not only about animal care and barn maintenance, but also about the delicate balance of managing a large property. She discovered the satisfaction of hard work, the calm that came from connecting with the land, and the pride in contributing to something greater than herself. Each day brought new lessons, and Clara felt more at home than she ever had in the city. One evening, as the sun set in soft hues of pink and gold, Clara sat on the porch and reflected on her journey. She thought about the fear and curiosity she had felt in the first days, the tension that had seemed so overwhelming, and the patience and observation that had led her to understanding. She realized that the experience had taught her not only about the ranch but also about herself, her instincts, her courage, and her ability to navigate challenges thoughtfully. Jack joined her on the porch, carrying 2 mugs of warm tea. He handed one to Clara and nodded toward the fields. "You've done well," he said quietly. "Not just with the work, but with understanding this place. That matters more than anything." Clara smiled, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. "Thank you," she said. "I never imagined the ranch was so alive in its own way. I understand now why everything is the way it is." Jack nodded, sipping his tea. "It's not always easy to see at first. People come here with ideas about farms and animals, but the land has its own rules. You've learned to listen and observe, that's what matters." As the evening settled into night, Clara felt a peaceful calm. The ranch no longer seemed mysterious or intimidating. It was a place of order, care, and hidden rhythms, and she was now a part of it. She understood that the true secret of the ranch wasn't danger or deception. It was the careful attention, patience, and dedication required to maintain it. Clara knew that her journey was just beginning. She would continue to work, learn, and explore, contributing to the life of the ranch and the community it supported. Yet she also understood the importance of respect, patience, and observation, and how curiosity combined with care could lead to understanding and trust. In the quiet of the night, with stars stretching across the sky and the soft sounds of animals moving in the distance, Clara felt a deep sense of belonging. She had faced uncertainty, mystery, and tension, and she had emerged stronger, wiser, and more connected to the world around her. The ranch had revealed its secrets, and in doing so, it had taught her lessons she would carry for the rest of her life. As Clara closed her eyes that night, she felt a sense of fulfillment. The journey that had begun with curiosity and a hint of fear had ended with understanding and connection. She had uncovered the hidden rhythms of the ranch, gained the trust of those who worked there, and discovered her own strength and patience. The land was alive, its secrets carefully protected, and now she was a part of it, ready to face each day with respect, care, and a quiet confidence.